Hey, how's it going, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is Three Buck Theater. And with Hobbs and Shaw hitting theaters today, and it already pulling in 25 million overseas, the reviews have been middling, but more on the positive side than not. The movie is looking like it's going to be a huge success for the Fast and Furious franchise as well as Universal, and it is going to be leading the charge into the final two films in the core franchise, which comes out in 2020 and in 2021, and those are being shot back to back with Justin Lin at the helm as a longtime fan of the franchise. And when I say long time, I am referring to summer 2001 when I saw the first film. I'm very excited to see where things go. But in regards to Hobbs versus Shaw, I'm telling you right now, Vin Diesel does not want you seeing this movie. Vin Diesel, despite anything, does not want you seeing this movie. And the reason why is because he tried to get it shut down. He tried to get it shut down all the way back in 2017. And I'm not making this up either. This was something I had to dig for because none of the articles talking about the lead up to this movie brought this up, but this is true. It says here, Vin Diesel killed Fate of the Furious scene with The Rock and Jason Statham exclusive. It says here, it looks like the feud between Vin Diesel and Dwayne The Rock Johnson isn't over. Diesel, a producer on The Fate of the Furious, killed plans for a scene at the end of the mega sequel that would have featured as co-stars Johnson and Jason Statham, insiders exclusively told The Wrap. The scene, described as a short tag to the story, featured The Rock's character Luke Hobbs and Statham's character Deckard Shaw, who develop a rapport over the course of the film. They had early screenings where Johnson and Statham popped so much on screen together that they were looking at doing a spin-off. And this ended up getting killed. This ended up not being there. This particular story is from April 13th, 2017, before the release of The Fate of the Furious. And if you saw The Fate of the Furious, then you know that came out right around the same time the movie came out. But you know that those were the best parts of the film. The movie was really good, but Hobbs and Shaw were the best parts of that movie. And I found it very interesting that at the end of the film, when everyone is saying, their goodbyes or they're doing their little wrap up right before the end credits roll, both Hobbs and Shaw were, I believe, at the party, and there was no final scene of them together. They had a few interactions throughout the film that made it really worthwhile, that made it a lot more fun, and they were clearly setting up something that was going to be building off the chemistry. But the feud between The Rock and Vin Diesel definitely is what prompted Diesel to flex his producer power as well as his ego and stop the scene from either getting shot or getting screened. And I say this because there was a big thing at the time where there was a huge feud between the two people, that there was a huge feud between Vin Diesel and The Rock. They didn't shoot one scene together in The Fate of the Furious, not one scene. There's only one shot in the film where it looks like they're in the same frame at the same time, but it was a body double for Vin Diesel, and that was it. They had problems back in 2016 when The Rock came out and called a producer on the film or a co-star a candy ass. They had a face-to-face in The Rock's trailer, which gave The Rock clarity over their working relationship, whether or not he's going to appear in any of the future spinoffs or the future sequels, because Fast and Furious 9, Fast and Furious 10 are kicking off in the next 2 years, and The Rock nor Deckard Shaw will be in number 9. Which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me, considering the fact that part of the franchise has been going up against an opponent, then recruiting that opponent to become part of the team for the next film or something like that. They've done this. It's their whole shtick. That's their trope. And it works. It works every single time they cast the right people that do have a good rapport with the rest of the cast. The thing is, though, is that not only did this feud hurt the production of The Fate of the Furious, it got Tyrese involved, and he started going after The Rock, begging him to not do a spinoff, to do the Hobbs and Shaw film, by putting out multiple Instagram stories or Instagram videos where he was complaining about this because he felt that it was breaking up the family. The entire point, the entire concept of the Fast and the Furious franchise is family. Right? It's what it's always been. And he felt that The Rock was more or less going to be just kind of doing it for himself. And that is ultimately true. If you followed anything with The Rock's career, They call him like franchise Viagra. If he enters into a franchise, it tends to find a way to bump it up, to make it bigger, to make it something more special, which is true. I mean, you could argue that he helped make Jumanji a lot better. And Fast and the Furious, when he came on a Fast and Furious 5, he really elevated it up. The problem though is that The Rock doesn't have a franchise of his own. He tried that with San Andreas. They're giving him a sequel. Skyscraper was like Die Hard. That movie came and it went. You had Rampage, which was kind of meant to be its own thing, maybe spinning off into a world or a sequels or its own franchise. That came and it went. The Rock can pull in money, but he can't do enough to pull in a franchise. So this is his best shot. Hobbs and Shaw, which, by the way, when they first announced this back in 2017, I actually did a video on it too. They said that it was going to be grounded, that Hobbs and Shaw was going to be a grounded film, that it was going to be a lot smaller in scale and scope and size than the other Fast and Furious movies. If you've seen the trailer, you know that's an absolute lie. They decided to go full bore, which makes sense considering the fact that they know who their audience is. That part I completely get. But seriously though, it's like this situation has fundamentally fractured the Fast and Furious family as a whole, right? I mean, not only with Paul Walker's death nearly 6 years ago, you have this spin-off thing where, even going back to the whole thing with Tyrese. Tyrese came out and said that him and Ludacris were offered a lot of money for their own spin-off. They wanted to do their own spin-off for the movie and from the franchise, and they turned it down because it wasn't with everyone. And the problem with it is, though, is that while they all want to play in the same sandbox, The Rock has his own end game in mind. He has his own ideas in mind. So while he might be franchise Viagra in some respects, he is definitely going to come in and do his own thing. I mean, the dude is everywhere. He works constantly. At no point am I criticizing him as an actor. I quite like The Rock. But as a person who's watched this franchise since the summer of 2001, who is a very big fan of the franchise, I look at this whole situation and I more or less back Vin Diesel. Now, Diesel came out in October, or around that time in October, before the announcement of the Hobbs and Shaw spinoff movie, and said that the beef was done. But the truth of the matter is, it's not really done. If he's not going to be in number 9, there's a reason for that. It's not because The Rock can't fit it in. The Rock could fit it in. It's because Diesel doesn't probably want him there because of the attitude. And if this movie is a success, and I do think that Hobbs and Shaw is going to gross $1 billion, I don't have any question in my mind on that front whatsoever. It's only going to fundamentally fracture what they've built in regards to the Fast and Furious franchise. But at the same time, looking at it from a business perspective, this is a franchise that started off as a ripoff of Point Break and turned into a multi-billion-dollar franchise where the crazier they go, the more money they make. These people are literal superheroes at this point. And that's part of the fun. That's part of the craziness. People go into these movies expecting that kind of approach to it. And it's why I think Justin Lin handling the last two is going to be the bigger one. Now, not only did Hobbs and Shaw get the go ahead and get made, they're also apparently working on a female spinoff of the Fast and Furious franchise, because I think that past episode 10 or past number 10, that's going to be where this thing continues to go. They're not going to do a reboot because there's really no need to do a reboot. It's just introduce more people to the main storyline and then potentially give them their own films depending on how they test with audiences. In the case of Hobbs and Shaw, it all came because Jason Statham and The Rock are able to bounce off each other in a way that is compelling, entertaining, and hilarious. And quite frankly, as I said before, they were some of the best parts of, if not the best parts of the Fate of the Furious, were those two interacting with one another. And so, yeah, like, I'm excited to see this movie, but let's be realistic here. Vin Diesel doesn't want you to see this movie. He doesn't want you to see this movie. And I know that's coming across as a clickbaity title, but I am saying this as a long time, nearly 2-decade fan of the franchise who owns all the movies on Blu-ray and a lot of them on DVD, and is really excited to see what comes next. I'm saying that. So I really hope that the movie does well. It's not to say that I want to shun Vin Diesel, but the franchise knows what it is, and I understand why he's upset. But I think that's one of the reasons why right before the release of this movie, he came out and talked about Riddick, because it's a lot of it's ego. You have ego versus ego, and Riddick ain't gonna make $1 billion. As much as I love Riddick, it ain't gonna make $1 billion. But Hobbs and Shaw will, and so will its inevitable sequels. and potential future spin-offs, provided the franchise doesn't disregard what it's become and what fans like about it. However, what do you think about this? Please write it down in the comments section. People want to know your thoughts. How does this make you feel? Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Fill me in. I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day. If you made it this far, do me a favor. Toss the video a thumbs up. Let's try to get to 200. If there's diehard fans, let me know that one as well. And have yourself a great day, guys, and peace out.